It's July 27th, and we have a new set of banners dropping in Umamusume today. Hello, fellow trainers, I'm Swift Shadow, and today we're going to be talking about the new character banner for Curren Chan and the support card banner for Yukino Bijin. For a short answer up front on if you should pull on these banners, my general recommendation would be to skip both of these. I think most people are in a position right now where they're low on pulls after Kita's banner, and I'm not one to ever recommend pulling if you can't manage to do the 200 pulls necessary that you would need to spark. On the off chance that you're someone who has enough pulls to spark, does not have Kita, and are wondering if you should pull on this support card banner, I don't think I'd ever recommend pulling on this banner over the Kita banner that we currently have. However, with all of that said, let's go over the positives and negatives of these banners since they do both have a few things going for them. Since this is my first banner overview video, I do want to spend some time to share my perspective that I'm coming from up front here. I'm a person who has played the Japanese version extremely casually over the last 3 years on and off, basically totaling about a year's worth of active playtime. When I did start playing the game, it was a year and a half after its release, so these banners that we're seeing now are from before my time. There are a lot of JP veterans who have a lot more playtime than I do, and have played the game much more competitively that will be able to offer more sound advice when it comes to PvP. As with anything, getting information from multiple sources is always better when it comes to making informed decisions. Hopefully, I can still provide you with some information and perspective going into these two banners though. First, let's talk about our new character, Curren Chan. When it comes to characters, my recommendation is always going to be that if you really like the character, then you should pull for them, and if not, then skip. Umamusume is a game where you can see great success with basically any horse girl that you like, assuming you have the knowledge of how the game works, the support cards to make a strong Uma, and the amount of time and effort it takes to go through enough careers until you do get a good outcome. Every now and then, there will be characters that are considered meta-defining who excel at certain areas, and it's a lot easier to find success with these characters, but in general, I still think it's more worthwhile and enjoyable to just pull for the characters you like and work with them. Curren Chan is not a character that I would consider to be meta-defining, but she does have two things going for her though. One, she's really cute. Two, she's a sprint character, and there aren't too many options for that distance in the game right now. You can see Curren Chan's aptitudes on screen right now, and from those you can see that she's very suited to the shorter distance with having a sprint. She has D miles, so you could try to get that aptitude up if you want to force her on mile distance, but there are definitely better options for that. She's almost exclusively used as a pace chaser, and her B for frontrunner can be a bit deceiving since that style can struggle to trigger her unique skill. Curren Chan's unique skill, #LookAtKurren, is triggered by passing another Uma when you're in the first half of the pack in the middle of the race. This gives her a 0.25 speed increase and a 0.3 acceleration increase that lasts for 5 seconds. On the topic of Curren's frontrunner aptitude, like I mentioned before, if Curren is the only frontrunner in the race, or if she's in first place during this portion of the race, she wouldn't be overtaking, and as a result, she misses this unique skill activation. That aspect, combined with the fact that her potential 3 skill requires her to be a pace chaser, does mean that you really want to run her in that style. Curren Chan's skills are a somewhat odd mix of speed and acceleration skills and some debuffs. From events, she can get access to Frenzied Late Surgers and Sprinting Gear. Frenzied Late Surgers is a debuff that prolongs the rushed state for late surgers, and frenzied debuffs are generally considered not very good. Sprinting Gear is a random acceleration skill that activates on a straight, and with the random acceleration skills, they can either be nice if they activate at a good time, or they can just be completely wasted. For her innate skill, she has access to Ramp Up. This is a nice skill that ends up increasing her speed when she overtakes an opponent during the middle of the race. Her other two innate skills are debuffs, Disorient and Intimidate. Disorient is a vision debuff, and it's the base version of her level 3 gold skill, and Intimidate is an opening leg speed debuff that's the base version of her level 5 gold skill. So let's talk about her potential skills now. Potential 2 gives her access to Meticulous Measures. This is a sprint-specific skill that gives her a lane movement speed and acceleration in the middle of the race. Potential 3 is a gold debuff skill, Dazzling Disorientation, which is the upgraded version of Disorient. This is a vision debuff. Vision debuffs are pretty bad. Potential 4 gives Prepared to Pass. This is a speed increase if you're in the first half of the pack on the final corner. And Potential 5 gives her access to Adored by All. This is the upgraded version of Intimidate, and it's an early race speed decrease that affects all runners behind her. As a pace chaser, this won't affect front runners since they'll be ahead of you. Early race speed debuffs are weaker since there's still time to build speed again anyways, although the downside of this is mitigated a bit by sprint being a shorter distance. But with that being said, both of Curren Chan's gold skills are pretty consistent to activate, so she can trigger them consistently, and that's nice for getting points during team trials. They're just not skills that would be super impactful in helping her actually win races. It's also worth clarifying that debuffs only affect opponent Umas, so you don't have to worry about them hindering your teammates in PvP. For me personally, the biggest downside to Curren Chan is that in a year from now, Curren Chan gets an alternate version, Wedding Curren Chan, and this alt basically outperforms her in most of the situations that she's used in. Wedding Curren Chan's unique skill has the same exact speed and acceleration increases for the same duration as her normal version, but it triggers in the last 350 meters of the race where these effects can be a bit more impactful. This alt also has her early race speed debuffed moved to her potential 3, and her potential 5 is instead Turbo Sprint, which is a straight acceleration skill, the same one that Bak Shin and her speed SSR have. So basically trading a vision debuff gold skill for a gold acceleration skill is nice. And this alt version also has what is, in my opinion, one of the 2 best signature race wears in the entire game, alongside Ballroom Daichi Ruby, so that's a big bonus for the alt for me as well. So as somebody who barely has enough pulls to spark a character right now, and as somebody who does like Curren Chan, I personally would rather wait until her wedding banner later and hope that I'm in a better position with pulls then. To sum everything up, while Curren Chan can be a nice sprint pace chaser to have on your account, she's definitely far from necessary. If you really like Curren Chan, you're looking for a sprint option for your team trials team, and you somehow still have pulls after the entire community has given everything that they own to Kita, then this banner could still be for you. But I don't think that's the situation that most people are going to find themselves in. Next, let's talk about the support card banner. This banner features the Yukino Bijin Wit SSR card and the Nishino Flower Power SR card. Let's briefly talk about the Nishino Flower SR first. She's basically an okay power card to have. She's a bit weaker stat-wise than the other strong power SRs like Hishi Amazon and Mihono Bourbon. She's also a card that does want MLB in order to get access to her power bonus, just like the Bourbon SR. But the one thing that she does have over the other power SRs is she gives 15% race bonus, and while that might not be super impactful right now, it is nice for a later scenario like Make a New Track, which is very focused on racing. She also has some pretty nice events. Her Chain 1 has a mood increase, so that's nice for cutting down on needing to take recreations, and one of her random events gives a choice between getting Charming or 20 energy, so that event is really nice. Charming is a +2 to friendship gain with your support card, so it's extremely good to see early on, and if you get this event late in the career instead, 20 energy is great unless you're capped on energy. So this card is pretty fine, and if you're hurting on power options and you do happen to get it to MLB, that's nice to have, but it's not worth going out of your way for. Now let's actually talk about Yukino Bijin as a card. This card is launching in a bit of a weird state in my opinion, and I do have quite a bit to say about it. Again, my general recommendation for most players would be to skip this card. But that's not to say that it's a terrible card, it does have a few nice things going for it, even if those might not be as relevant right now. While it probably isn't a card that you'd want to pull for now, this is an example of a card that you could probably see yourself wanting to borrow later on. First, let's talk a bit about this card's stats. At 0 LB, this card has 15% friendship bonus, 40% mood effect, 3 wit friendship recovery, level 2 hint levels, 30% hint frequency, and 20 specialty priority. At 1 LB, it unlocks wit bonus. At 3 LB, it increases your initial wit by 15, and this is also the point where its specialty priority ends up capping out at 35. 4 LB doubles that initial wit effect up to 30, increases your mood effect to 60, and adds 1 additional energy to the wit friendship recovery effect. I'd initially recorded a section comparing this card to other wit options that we currently have, but that went on for a while and it was boring, so I'm just gonna say this instead. From 0 LB up through 2 LB, Bijin is a card that I would consider to be worse to slightly worse than MLB SR options like Marvelous Sunday or Machikane Fukugitaru. At 3 LB, it becomes about even with them, and then it pulls ahead when you get it to MLB. But pulling for that many limit breaks on an SSR card just to outperform some SRs isn't super appealing. I do also want to take a moment to touch on mood effect here, since this card does have a higher mood effect than any other wit card in the game right now, hitting 60% when you get it to MLB, and I did see a few people on Twitter talking about this and being very hyped about it. I think there is a misconception on what exactly mood effect does, so let's clear that up right now. The way that mood works when it comes to stat gains from training in Umamusume is that each stage of your mood is an effective 10% per stage away from normal mood. So at normal mood, you get a 0% bonus, awful mood is a negative 20% or a 20% penalty, and great mood is a 20% bonus. Mood effect is then directly applied to this portion, so 60% mood effect when at great mood would increase this portion, the 20%, by 60%. It doesn't add an additional flat 60% on top of that. 60% of 20% is 12%, so you'd be getting a bonus of 32% instead of the normal 20%. I'm not at all saying that mood effect is bad to have, it's nice, but when some people see this 60% number, they think that it's a bigger deal than it actually is. And with those comparisons in mind, I think this card also just struggles a bit because of the general landscape of the game right now. For distances outside of Sprint and Mile, it can be a bit of a struggle trying to fit multiple Wit cards into your deck when you're trying to build for PvP. I personally have been struggling to get a good balance of speed, power, and stamina while trying to run more than one Wit card for those longer distances. If you are a person who has high limit break SSRs, this might be less of an issue for you since the larger stat gain that you're getting from those cards gives you more freedom with your deck slots, but running one or no Wit cards does seem a bit more comfortable to me if your cards aren't at that very high end. So if I'd make the assumption that you're going to be running one or maybe two Wit cards in the majority of your decks, I personally don't see this card offering enough stat-wise over the current Wit options that you might already have in order to warrant pulling on this banner. Your decks will get more flexible with later scenarios giving some more stat gain, but right now this card can be a bit hard to slot in my opinion. With the stat comparison out of the way, let's talk more about this card on its own specifically and the other things that it does offer since stats aren't everything. Each of Bijin's chain events have an option that increases your mood, and that can be very nice to cut down on recreations, but you also can't really plan around when those events will trigger. She's also a card that consistently gives her gold skill on her chain 3 event, which can't be said for a good amount of the cards that were present at launch. When it comes to skills that she can hint, she has 2 medium-specific skills in Steadfast and Medium Corners, with Medium Corners being particularly good since it is so cheap. She can also hint the green skills Winter Runner and Nakayama Racecourse. Winter Runner could be nice for some Winter CM events. She also has a random event that does give access to corner acceleration, but as we mentioned earlier, the effectiveness of these random excel skills varies based on when they do proc. Now let's talk about the big skill. Yukino Bijin's gold skill, No Stopping Me, is an acceleration and lane movement increase that triggers when the way ahead of you is blocked during your last spurt. You might see this skill referred to as Nonstop Girl or NSG by JP players. If you're familiar with the skill Nimble Navigator, this gold skill is the upgraded version of that one. For these skills specifically, there's been a lot of confusion on how impactful they are because these skills did end up getting rebalanced later on in the JP version. In the English release, we currently have the old and weaker versions of these skills, and these weren't changed until I believe JP's first anniversary. As a result, this skill isn't very good right now, but it ends up becoming an extremely useful skill in the future. To explain why that is the case, let's take a look at the specific effects that the gold skill has. For both the current version and the reworked version of No Stopping Me, you gain 0.4 acceleration and 0.025 lane movement speed. In theory, this is a skill that gives you movement speed and acceleration to be able to pass around the person blocking you and get back up to your max speed more quickly. And acceleration skills that activate close to the start of your last spurt can be extremely powerful with helping you get to your max speed. If these effects are the same both before and after the rework, why is the skill considered bad now and good later? That's because there's one major difference in the activation conditions. Both versions of these skills have the same is last spurt and HP per checks, which means that it is the last spurt currently and you have more than 1% HP remaining. The difference comes from the other condition. In the English version, this has a blocked front continue time check, which means that you must have another Uma blocking your front side for 1 second. After the rework, this changes to an in-front near lane time check instead. This means that right now you need to have someone directly blocking you for a second, whereas later on after the rework, someone just needs to be within 2.5 meters in front of you for a second. This not only makes the skill much more consistent to trigger, but it also means that you don't have to be in nearly as bad of a position for it to trigger, and it lessens the risk of you suffering the negative downsides of being blocked from the front. So later on, the effects of the skill end up becoming a very strong acceleration that triggers early on in the spurt, and it also allows you to avoid being blocked a little bit better because of the lane movement speed. But as it stands right now, if you're being blocked from the front for a second during your last spurt, which is the condition that you need in order to trigger it, you're already kind of screwed and this skill might not save you. So with all of that being said, I think Yukino Bijin is a good example of a card that you might want to borrow in the future for PvP events that will be getting like Champions Meeting because of the good gold skill that she has to offer, but it's not necessarily something that you need to have on your account right now. This card is one of the only sources of this gold skill, and the other cards that do provide it are a bit further off, so that is a big benefit that this card does have. This is also a skill that you will be able to acquire from the Aoharu Cup scenario, but by the time that the skill does get its rebalance and starts to actually see use, we'll be moving on to the Make a New Track scenario that comes afterwards, so you won't be able to get it from there on the good horse girls that you're going to be training. If you have a good wit option already that you're comfortable with using, then this card doesn't really offer you much of an upgrade, and its gold skill won't see full use until later, so for most players I would recommend just skipping and saving your carrots for something else. And with that, we've come to the end of today's video. If you enjoyed this video and you watched it to the end, please give the video a like and let me know your thoughts in the comments. This is my first time working on a video like this, so I would love feedback as to what I can improve for next time. If there are any other things that you think I should focus on or cover when I do these, or if I did end up missing anything, feel free to let me know that as well. I don't know if I'll do a video like this for every banner that we are getting, and the length will probably vary depending on how much I actually have to say about each banner, but if there is a positive reception to this video, then that does motivate me more to do stuff like this more often. And if you really like this video and you want to see more content from me, then consider subscribing to the channel. I've been putting out quite a bit of Umamusume content since the English release came out, and I don't think that that's something that's going to change anytime soon. That's all from me for today, so thank you, as always, for watching.